Hello, this is Aries at Moonlight Astro. Welcome back to my channel. And if you're new, welcome. Thank you for stopping by and visiting. Today, I wanted to do kind of a longer overview on the upcoming retrogrades and also the eclipses that will be happening in March. Just wanted to kind of lay the foundation for that and how it connects to the recent Mars retrograde and a few other things as well. If you're new to my channel, I talk about astrology, planning, productivity, and also just general support for people as well, since we have stretch such a stressful time, especially in America and North America. But yeah, I just want to get into some of the brief or major aspects that's going to be happening in March 2025. It felt like it deserved its own special video. So that's what we have today. And I hope you're all doing well. Check in. How are you? Yeah, I guess this is good to like just check in with ourselves and just ask us that. How are you right now in this moment? So if you need to, just take a couple of deep breaths. And I heard in another video recently, someone say that one of the people commented on their sheet. I think it was Dabney Lawless, actually, one of my favorite astrologers. One of the people I commented on her video, everything's going to be okay because I'm okay. And I like that sentiment. So if you need to take that on for yourself, feel free. With that, let's just get into it. I am thinking about this particular time, March, as our ability to lead with vulnerability, or how being emotionally receptive can unlock your true power. I feel like that is actually the invitation from this upcoming Venus retrograde, the Mercury retrograde, and eclipse season. We actually have the Venus retrograde that's going to be from March 1st to April 12th, 2025. And so we're in the pre-shadow period of that upcoming retrograde right now. Venus is about beauty, our relationships, our finances. In a nutshell, our ability to be resourced or to feel resourced is how I think of Venus. I also think of the Venus retrograde in particular as healing the inner wounded feminine. Venus is about our divine feminine. Mars is about our divine masculine. And so the recent Mars retrograde was about the opportunity to heal that inner wounded masculine. And now that we've had time to work on that inner wounded masculine, our ability to act, our ability to be in touch with our bravery, our power, our courage, our initiative, the universe is now giving us the opportunity to work on our inner wounded feminine, or what I think of as our ability to be emotionally receptive, to have emotional space, to create boundaries around our emotional space. My intuition is that our inner feminine, our ability to have that emotional safety is the foundation of our being able to say, what are my values? What is my sense of self worth? What do I value in my life? And I feel like the Venus retrograde gives us an opportunity to work on all of that. I think that's part of the reason why often during Venus retrogrades in particular, which happen about every 18 months for the most part, is often when you'll see really big changes in romantic relationships. Often people do break up during a Venus retrograde because they do realize that their needs are not being met. They're not receiving what they feel they deserve. But it could also be the flip side too. During a Venus retrograde, you and your partner, you may decide to take things to the next level. You may decide this is the time to move in together or to get engaged. That can happen too during a Venus retrograde. But what I wanted to focus on was this idea of creating emotional space, emotional receptivity, and being able to create emotional boundaries for yourself. I think this Venus retrograde can be an excellent time to ask yourself those kinds of questions. And what have you had challenges with around that? I think in particular, this is especially important since this Venus retrograde is going to be with Venus and Aries. And I feel like Venus and Aries helps us tap into what is what is our heart asking for. And I think it's very helpful that this is happening after Mars in retrograde just went direct. And Mars is still in Cancer. And Mars in Cancer can activate our insecurities, our irritations. Um, it can be another way to get to what's needling us, what's not being met, our unmet needs. And so, if you have unfinished work from this recent Mars retrograde, this Venus retrograde will give you another opportunity to look at those unmet needs from a different perspective, a different angle. And so I invite you to do that. I think it's important this first part of 2025 to do this shadow work. And I'll talk about that later on as we get further along in this message in this video. But yeah, I want you to sit with that, to think about how can you speak from your heart. I feel like the Mars retrograde helped us tap into our courage, our inner strength. And now we can use that inner strength, that reserve of strength and resilience, to ask our heart, so what do I really need? What is missing? What am I not receiving emotionally? Where am I not being fed emotionally? And you can look at this both personally and also professionally in your business. So, from a practical standpoint for solopreneurs, this could also be a great time to review and adjust your financial plans or your financial budget. Because again, the Venus retrograde can be about our relationship to money, being resourced, and how our money is reflecting our values and how we set up our pricing. Does that really reflect your self value? Do you feel like your business is a reflection of your self worth? And I'm not saying that your business should be tied to your self worth. Obviously, that's not the case. But in terms of your offerings, are you asking for enough money to live a life that serves you, where you feel physically safe? I think a Venus retrograde is a great time to look at that as well. And if that needs to be adjusted, a Venus retrograde is definitely an excellent time to do that. A Venus retrograde can also be a great time for rebranding your personal look, hair, wardrobe, makeup, that sort of thing. And it could also be an excellent time to upgrade your professional branding, your website. I'm definitely going to do that for myself during this upcoming Venus retrograde. There are several changes I've been wanting to make to my website, and I haven't had the time or the bandwidth to do that. And I think I'm definitely going to do that during this particular Venus retrograde. I'm going to use that energy to help me do that. You can also upgrade professional materials, promotional materials, and your social media as well. A Venus retrograde is an excellent time to look at all of those things as well. And this can also be great too, because we are moving into the Mercury retrograde. That will be from March 15th through April 7th. Mercury retrograde is also going to be in Aries, which can be quick thinking when it's in its higher expression. When it's in its lower expression, it might be impulsive. It might even lead to being a little bit aggressive and impatient. So be mindful of that during this upcoming Mercury retrograde. Mercury, of course, governs our communication, our technologies, and our ability to plan as well. So this could be a great time to relook at your plans, anything that you have broken out for maybe like particular launches in the next few months or the next couple quarters. You may want to review the timing on those things. If you have certain things broken out in smaller projects, smaller tasks, or Mercury retrograde is a great time to review those things. Mercury retrogrades are great times also for reviewing contracts and agreements. Most people would recommend that you not initiate or start or sign a contract during the actual Mercury retrograde. But if you have to, definitely double, triple check all of the details. Often with a Mercury retrograde, there's usually a key piece of information either you or the other party is missing, or both of you are missing, and it won't come to light until after the retrograde is complete. And I do think this could be particularly heightened as a result of this also during eclipse season. Often eclipses can reveal things that you weren't expecting, but it may not be the details that you need for a significant contract or a major purchase like computer, electronics. If you do have to do that sort of thing, the pre-shadow period is a good time to do that. The pre-shadow period before the Mercury retrograde begins is March 1st. It doesn't actually turn retrograde until March 15th. So those first couple of weeks of March could be a good time if you do need to purchase a new computer or a new software, a new television, a new phone, that sort of thing. Actually, during the pre-shadow period of the Mercury retrograde, that is usually when I will do my software upgrades. I usually change passwords during that time. It's a good time of year to do that sort of thing. And because Mercury retrograde usually happen 3 or 4 times a year, it's just a good nudge for me to remember to upgrade all of that stuff like 3 or 4 times a year. So, that's one way to use that energy as well. So, of course, during the Mercury retrograde, double check, triple check emails, contracts. If you are traveling during that time, definitely double, triple check all the schedules. There are typically travel delays during a Mercury retrograde, which sometimes can be nice because it gives you time to just have more time for yourself to think, to brainstorm, to strategize, or frankly, just to rest. Often Mercury retrogrades are an invitation to slow down. And given just how much has been happening already in 2025, the Mercury retrograde and this Venus retrograde, this could actually be an opportunity to slow down, take some time to integrate all of the emotional changes that have been happening, all of the emotional ups and downs. It could be a good time to check in with yourself, see how you're doing. I highly recommend upping the therapy, the self care, spiritual care. If you've been looking for spiritual communities, the Venus and Mercury retrogrades could definitely be a good way to check out different groups, see what you're interested in. Maybe there's a group that you used to go to for support. The Mercury retrograde might be a great time to go back to a previous support group or maybe a former healer that you used to work with in terms of energy work, that sort of thing, to help you process all of the stress that's been happening around you this year. Because unfortunately, at least looking at it from the astrology, the rest of 2025, I think, is actually just going to continue to become more intense energetically and emotionally. I really do feel like we have so many big astrological things happening at the beginning of 2025 because it is an invitation from the divine, the universe, for us to do our shadow work now, to clean house internally so that we can have a stronger foundation, so that we can continue to develop that muscle of resiliency. I feel like we're spiritually maturing, and a part of that spiritual maturity is making sure that we have the tools to create our own emotional safety. And I think that's especially true with a Venus retrograde, since I find that that is such a key aspect of healing my own inner wounded feminine. My ability to say, I deserve emotional space, and then to protect and maintain that emotional space so that I feel safe to do what I need to do and to thrive, to give myself permission to thrive. And so incorporate, what you need to help set yourself up for that. I actually, for the first time in a long time, a few days ago, I went ecstatic dancing, which I hadn't done for like 10 years. And it was so great. It was so fun just to move my body from the space of my inner child being able to express themselves. And so, find things like that to help you, to give yourself that kind of support, whatever that takes. Because we live in very challenging times. We're in a time where humanity is transitioning and evolving and expanding to the next level. And we're watching a lot of structures fall away around us. And we don't know yet what's going to replace it. And I think that's a really good segue into eclipse season, because the eclipses themselves, we're kind of transitioning from one eclipse series to the next. And I think that's also why many people are feeling this anxiety, this sense of being unsettled. There is a sense of things falling away, but we don't know yet what's coming in to replace it. And I do think the eclipses are going to heighten that feeling for many people. Um, we had the the Libra Aries series. So pardon me. I'm recording this at the end of February, where we're still with Mercury and Pisces. And I find whenever that transit is happening, I have a really difficult time finding my words. But Mercury will be entering Aries in just a few days on March 3rd. So hopefully I will be able to communicate more clearly after that. But what I wanted to say is we had the Libra Aries eclipse series that began October 14th, 2023. And it will end March 29, 2025, when we have the eclipse in Aries then. And so those last couple of years, we've been learning to balance or how to be in harmony with balance versus action, self versus others. And we are now transitioning into the Pisces Virgo eclipse series. That officially began September 17, 2024, and that's going to end March 3rd, 2026. So we're in that liminal space where the eclipse series overlap. It's that literal transition of energies. And Pisces, I think, is going to be about how do we balance the vision, the dream versus practicality, spirituality versus routine, and all of this conflict, all of these challenges that we're experiencing on the collective, that friction is actually helping birth a new vision for humanity and consciousness. And we're having to decide what part we want to play, what is our role, how do we want to serve others. And I know many of you who have the kind of businesses that you have, that's why you started those businesses, because you wanted to be a part of this time where we are becoming a new human in many respects. And so, because it's unclear what changes are about to unfold, there's a lot of anxiety. And I think also because this is happening during Pisces season, the early part of the eclipse season, it's about learning to sit with that unknown, to be in the uncomfortable or the discomfort of the void of what's being born. It's an invitation. March in particular is intuitively, I feel, an invitation to slow down, to not have the calendar be jam packed, so that we can really just settle in to what our soul is calling to us. What is our soul asking us to bring out into the world, to breathe into the world, to birth into the world? And you can do that with your business as well. If you have new projects, new books that you want to put out, new courses you want to offer, new messages, March could be a really good time to sit with those, brainstorm, strategize, vision, and then maybe actually launch them in April or May. Yeah, but this is a great time to just really be asking, where in your life or in your business, what is no longer serving you, what needs to be released. And it's possible that eclipses, they will highlight that for you. It'll probably become pretty obvious to you either, if not during the actual eclipses in March, usually in 2 to 3 months post eclipses, it's usually pretty obvious what's being released. Sometimes things get ripped from us during eclipses because they no longer serve us or they have us on the wrong path. Like maybe our soul's purpose has upgraded or changed, and it's time for us to move on to something different that's going to serve us better in the long term. So I typically don't usually start anything major during the actual eclipses themselves. I usually just like to observe and see what happens, what shows up for me in my life, either personally or professionally. And then I just follow the direction of the universe. I find eclipses are much easier emotionally and on my nervous system when I have that attitude with them. And of course, I still continue to do things. I still do my day-to-day stuff. I still work on my projects. I just keep an open mind. I allow myself to be flexible and resilient. And so I'm just going to invite you and encourage you to do the same as well. Um, and so journaling, of course, is always a great way to process those emotions, to help you gain clarity, but also maybe doing some arts and crafts. Maybe some of you are more physical, more tactile. Maybe you need to actually like build something, even if it's small, or maybe even you might want to refurnish a piece of furniture. Maybe you've been thinking about getting a dresser or that sort of thing. Oh, Venus retrogrades are also great too for any kind of renovation projects. So if you've been thinking about renovating a room or a closet, or if you want to, if you have to do like a major reno project, I would try to get the contract itself signed before Mercury goes retrograde. Like if you need a new bathroom or work on the basement, that sort of thing. Um, if you can get the contract signed before Mercury goes retrograde, that's probably a good idea. But to do the actual work during the Venus retrograde, that can be super helpful as well, to use that energy in that way. Venus is great at helping you beautify any kind of space. Oh, and I also wanted to go back to this coming on the heels of the Mars retrograde. Mars went direct February 23rd, but Mars is still in Cancer till about mid-April, I think April 18th. And so again, like I was saying earlier, Mars can activate our unmet needs, our insecurities, and then the Venus retrograde can heighten and intensify that. And the other thing that's happening too, we still have that Mars-Pluto opposition energy happening. That first happened November 23rd, and then in 2024, January 3rd at the beginning of this year, and then it's going to have its final opposition April 26, 2025. Mars again, our bravery, our courage. Pluto, transformation, power. So when they oppose one another, it can lead to startling, shocking breakthroughs. Um, and Mars in Cancer is already pretty intense emotionally sometimes. And so both the eclipses, the Venus retrograde and the Mercury retrograde and the eclipse season as well, against this backdrop of the Mars-Pluto opposition energy. Um, Mars might just be emotionally intense. And I know 2025 has already been emotionally intense for many of us. We just may see more intense emotional roller coaster experiences throughout March. So I want to do this video just to warn you, to prepare you that that might be the case. And this is why I'm encouraging that you set up the emotional support systems, the therapy, the energy work, the yoga classes, like make space for those things so that you have space to process whatever comes up. And there also may be more power struggles in relationships, personal and professional. We may see more power struggles on the world stage. I'd be highly surprised if we didn't. So just set yourself up so that you can ride those waves Um, but as a solopreneur, one of the positive ways to use this energy is you could channel that energy into some of your creative projects or some of your passions, or find a way to channel that energy into your work. I mean, I've been using a lot of these things as a way to help me figure out what I want to talk about on my YouTube channel or on my newsletter. So there are ways to tap into that energy and let it fuel you and not, flatten you in a nutshell. But again, be mindful of power dynamics. Be mindful that people around you will also be feeling these astrological energies, even though they're not conscious of it, they're not following astrology. So, as I always like to remind people, give yourself and give others grace, give them space when needed. And also, all of these energies, the Mars retrograde that just ended, the Venus retrograde that's coming up, the Mercury retrograde, the eclipses. I also feel like this is an invitation for us to all learn how to stand up for ourselves, how to stand up to the bullies in our own life. The more we can do that on an individual and personal level, the more that energy will shift on the collective level. And I feel like that is also the invitation of March. So if you have not found a way to address the bullies in your own life, and that doesn't always mean that you have to have an actual out and out confrontation with someone. Sometimes that's not always the healthiest or most appropriate thing to do. Sometimes it can be as simple as standing in your own truth, your own knowing, and acting from that space. Sometimes just by your actions, you can communicate to others what you will stand for, what you will not stand for. Sometimes just your way of being is enough to change the dynamic. And so, if you're struggling with that, I would encourage you to get help, talk to the healers that are in your life that can help you with that sort of thing, the therapist. Um, and also, you can always, talk to the divine, your spirit guides, if that helps you as well. And write about it, journal about it. You can always do tarot card readings, other energy work around that sort of thing as well. I just want to remind you, that you have access to resources and communities, and you have your own intuition and knowing and gifts inside of you. And so, by using all of those tools, there are answers to be found for you about how to move forward. So, I just want to remind you of that as well. Oh, and the other big thing, too, that's happening is all of this energy is also helping us prepare for the major Neptune and Saturn transits that are coming up. So we have Neptune moving into Aries, which is a very big deal. And I'll do another video about that later on in March. But that will be happening March 30th. And Saturn is going to be moving into Aries March 24th, 2025. And so when the outer planets change signs, it changes things on the collective level. And I feel like that's one of the other reasons why we're seeing everything that we're going through right now. We're being prepared for those upcoming transits. And again, this is why I feel like the universe is inviting us to do our own individual shadow work so that we have a stronger foundation for those upcoming transits and the seismic shifts that we are about to see over the next couple of years. So I think in many ways that we are being beautifully set up to tap into our own inner knowing, inner strengths, and inner resilience, and to learn how to grow them so that we can become stronger people, stronger souls, and also as a result of all of that, on the other side of it, I think we're going to experience massive amounts of joy. I really do feel like there will be a reward for all of this work that we are currently doing and that we are about to do. So I want to give you that as well. That's basically all I have to say. I'm wishing you much love, peace, and joy. Easefully yours, Aries.